Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome once again to the Behind the Steel Curtain family of podcasts. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. You can call me Bad. Today, call me Dad. It's Father's Day, and I want to wish everybody out there in our BTSC family a happy Father's Day. Whether you're celebrating a father, whether you're remembering a father, whether you're a father on your own, it's a very special day to me. And I'm very glad to have you all along with me today. Now, this is usually the spot for the Homer and the Hater show. Lance Williams is off today. I requested that, and Lance requested that he take off for Father's Day. He wanted me to do the same thing. But my thing today is I want to honor all the fathers out there. And with the Pittsburgh Steelers, there's a deep tradition of fatherhood, and that's something we're going to talk about in a little bit. So no Homer and the Hater this week. Like Lance likes to call it, it's a Cool Whip type of show. It's going to be very fluffy. So what I really want you to do, and we're going to have a lot of fun today, and we're going to talk about the joy of fatherhood, but also about memories, how you became a Steeler fan. And for me, a lot of that has to do with my dad introducing it to me. I want to thank everybody here in the podcasts, in the live chat. And I'm laughing because Mark Davison just wrote, Mark Davison, a great fan of the show. He wrote, mate, it's 11 p.m. here down under. Of course, Steeler Nation Australia in the house. I want to go ahead and look at, I want to recognize a few people in the live chat as well. Rodolfo Gigantana, Cree Ickes, Mark Davison, of course, the Stuart Love from Edinburgh, Scotland, the Stuart Love NFL show. That's fantastic. Ryan O'Toole, another great contributor to the show. Thanks, Bad. Happy Father's Day. Wes Hickok, our buddy Wes, going to be doing some writing maybe this fall with the grades, taking that off of my plate. And once again, Mark Davison having a few beers. I want you to share memories in a little bit about how you became Steeler fans, but we'll do that in a little bit. Thanks for everybody who's joining us today. And once again, I want to do a shout out to my BTSC family and members of my BTSC family. Of course, Dave Schofield, the editor, father of 3 lovely children. Dave, a great dad. Lots of great dads here. Lance Williams, my partner here on the Homer and the Hater show usually. And throughout the week, Lance, wonderful father. Richardson Schofield, Big Bro Sco. I know it's not Richardson. I know it's not Rich Tiberius Schofield, but great father as well. And fantastic family man. Shout out to a few guys on the website as well. The blog site, Jeffrey Benedict. And if I'm missing anybody who's a dad, happy Father's Day. And I'm sorry if I did miss anybody. I feel like I'm at the Oscars giving my acceptance speech. But a very special day to me. And this day really didn't mean much to me as a kid. You're a kid. You just think, you get your dad gifts and then you go play out in the yard. But now it means so much more to me. And that's something I'll get into in a little bit. But the topic of the show, I forgot something. Another dad I want to recognize. He's no longer with the website Behind the Steel Curtain and on the podcast, but Jeff Hartman, fantastic dad of 5. He was kind of the patriarch at Behind the Steel Curtain for me, even though he's 12 years younger than me, but he helped me out a lot and helped me be able to get into podcasting here, which I never had a chance to do. So I want to say happy Father's Day to Jeff as well. So lots of great things to talk about here. But the thing that I want to talk about, Steeler memories, we're going to talk about it a little bit, how you became a Steeler fan. But what kind of memories can the 2020 Steelers make? That's the big question. And how could they make 2020 more memorable? So there's a lot of things. Now, 2019 may have been one that we wanted to forget. It was a rough year. You get blown out in week 1 against New England, which, it was just a bad all-around performance on Sunday Night Football. Then you turn around, and the next week you have your home opener. You lose Ben Roethlisberger right before the second half. Mason Rudolph comes out and looks pretty good in that game. Well, what happens? They get horrible calls, and they blow it on defense. That leads to a trade 2 days later, and the trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick coming in, that helps shore up the defense. And it looked like, wow, hey, the defense is going to be back. Vince Williams was out also, and he had a lot to do with his absence had a lot to do with the run game suffering as well. So you couple that with, finally a win against Cincinnati on Monday Night Football. Then the big showdown against the Baltimore Ravens. It's a big one. That's a game they had won. Bad call with Ola Adeniyi. Horrible call. That roughing the passer was terrible. You had Mason Rudolph just getting absolutely tattooed and out of the game. Duck Hodges comes in, rallies the team, and they're looking better. And then Juju has that fumble, and that fumble sunk it for him. So it was a pretty rough start to the season. All of a sudden, they start putting together wins, and it looks like they're going to go to the playoffs. November 14th, the Myles Garrett incident happens with Mason Rudolph. Things kind of went downhill for Mason then. Then you're looking at the rest of the season, 3 games to go. You just need to really maybe win one of those to get into the playoffs. They don't. And it was just a rough year that you want to forget. But now 2020 comes around, and you feel like it's going to be so much better. Ben's back. James Conner's, Ryan Switzer, they're saying stuff like, wow, he's really has zip on the ball. He's throwing better than ever. Ben says it's the first time he's pain-free in a long, long, long time. And then you have Juju, who had a rough year. You had James Conner, who had another rough injury year. Those guys, they have been working out like madmen. You have the defense that is still stout. They lost one guy, Javon Hargrave. Well, they lost a few players, Mark Barron, Anthony Chickillo, but as far as starters, they lost one starter. But they're able to fill in the blanks, and they have some depth on that defensive line. So there's some things to look at there that it's really could be a positive season. But how can they make this a memorable season? And the reason I keep on saying memorable, it's going to go into the Father's Day theme of the show, because when you're talking to your dad, when you're talking to your kids about the Steelers, you want 2020 to be the one that you're really talking about. And you're going to want to remember watching it with your loved ones too. So that's a very important thing to me. So the first thing first, and this is a no-brainer. Everybody knows this one. You got to stay healthy. We talked about health. There's you worry about those guys that always seem to end up with injuries, and you worry about those guys that have never been injured, and then they get their first one, and who's the bug going to hit this year? And hopefully it doesn't hit them that hard. Hopefully they paid their injury dues last year. That's the big hope. But that's the big thing, staying injury free. The other one, and this applies to most NFL teams as well, the other one to me would be simply getting a lead, going for the throat early. The Pittsburgh Steelers don't seem to really go for the throat. That's the thing. They get a lead, kind of sit on it. Why were the Ravens so successful last year? They got leads early. They got ahead early. And then they got to go into, I don't want to say cruise control, but they got to the point where they can still play their game, but knowing that anytime somebody punched, they could counterpunch. And that was a really big thing with them going 13-3 last year. But remember, this team's not that far away from being a 13-3 season like they were in 2017. If the planets align just right, they could be good. Another thing the Steelers need to do to make this a memorable season would be simply this: play your A game against lower grade opponents. There's lower grade opponents on the schedule. This is actually for the AFC North. This is a very good schedule year. It's a weak schedule. The Ravens don't have a tough slate. The Steelers don't have a tough slate. We've seen the Steelers, let's say 2008, when they won the Super Bowl last. They had the toughest schedule in the league. They still won the Super Bowl. One of the reasons that they did so well and won the Super Bowl that year is they felt like they had to have their A game the entire time. They were playing teams like the Dallas Cowboys out of conference. They were playing some really tough games. Of course, Baltimore was a good team that year. They played them in the AFC Championship game. There was, of course, you had New England out there, even though Tom Brady went down. But that was a team that they had to pull up their A game to still beat, even without Tom Brady. Actually, that game didn't start off well with Matt Castle and Randy Moss running all over. And the Steelers put it together and ended up whipping them. But here's the thing. They really need to make sure that when you're playing a lower grade team like the Jets, like the Bengals, like the Dolphins last year, that those can't be close games. One of my great memories of the Steelers, and I've been watching a lot of old games on YouTube and on McMillanandWife.com. If you've never checked out McMillan and Wife, it's really cool. It's a chance to look at old games, the broadcasts. Some of them have Myron Cope and Jack Fleming in there. They have the old broadcasts are great. In fact, I'm watching the playoffs from 1978 right now, and it's a whole lot of fun. I haven't gotten through them because I fall asleep at night when I'm doing it. Not that I'm bored, I'm just exhausted. But one thing that they did, they were crushing teams that didn't really live up to expectations of being a good team. So a lower grade team, they would go in and crush. Then they might play tighter games against good teams, but you just don't want them to play tight games against bad opponents. We've seen it. I mean, Dave Schofield talks about the one game that he went to. He'll never forget the Tampa Bay game and Mike Glennon beating him. When Mike Glennon beat them back in 2014, he was at that game, and it still haunts him. So you can't lose games like that. And so that's one thing that they need to do. Again, Thaddeus asks, what's that website? It's called McMillanandWife.com. If you Google search McMillan and Wife Steelers, it's really cool. When I did my series, Throwback Thursday, and when I do a throwback for a playoff game or a Super Bowl, like I always like to do around that time, the big thing for me is I watch the game and I report on it like I'm watching it for the first time. But here's the thing. When you look at what the Steelers need to do, it's quite simple. Just get back to basics and be a bully. The Steelers could be a bully this year and still play classy. So really, those are the few adjustments they need to make this a memorable season. I'm going to open up the live chat real quick. Let me know what you think would make a memorable season for the Steelers. I saw somebody out there mention the fact that they need to get off to a faster start. You can't go 0-1, especially playing the Giants in week 1. You don't want to go 0-1. You don't want to go 0-3 last year. I think that first quarter of the season is probably very important this year as well. And remember, this is going to be a strange year because COVID-19 is definitely going to make a mark on the 2020 season, hopefully not too much of one. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you to go ahead and throw in there what you think would make a memorable season for the Steelers. And the most memorable thing would be, of course, winning the Super Bowl, getting to the Super Bowl and winning it. I still think it's a window where they can go ahead and do it. Mark Davison says, AFC North win is a must. Do you agree, Bet? Yep. They definitely have to win the AFC North. But if they don't, They just got to get to the dance. Here's the thing this year. There's only one team with a bye. So that's a big deal too. One team with a bye. So towards the end of the season, it's just basically about getting in and getting home advantage. But it's really making sure that AFC North is competitive and not one-sided with the Ravens. It's okay if the Ravens win the North. Don't attack me for that. But the thing about it is make sure they know you're there. Make sure it's tight where it's anybody's division between the Steelers and the Ravens. Thaddeus Kennedy says, watching Ben come back from injury and win the Super Bowl, if he wins, do you think he'd retire? I actually think he would. I think the next ring that he gets is going to be the Swan Song. It's very tough to repeat these days. Remember John Elway finally got his first? He came back for a second because they were strong coming back. It's a lot harder 22 years later. So, I would probably think that if Ben Roethlisberger gets that ring, and if he gets that ring, I'm probably going to say he's going to be Super Bowl MVP. So at that point, you would go out on top. I would fully support him going out. However, think about this. There's like another 30 million on the line if he comes back for one more year. So, I would not blame him if he said, all right, I'll play one more season in the Swan Song and get all that money. So, that's hard to turn down a lot of money like that as well. Ryan O'Toole says, another great contributor, Watt getting DPOY, Defensive Player of the Year, and the defense shutting down everyone all the way to the Super Bowl. Hey, that's really something that I think could happen. I think TJ Watt is definitely the one Steeler that is a career Steeler. I think there's another one he will never be a career Steeler because he started his career with the Miami Dolphins, but Minkah Fitzpatrick needs to finish his career in Pittsburgh and be a career Steeler that way. And I really think that he is. You throw him and Fitzpatrick together, and Watt together. Still have Cam for hopefully more years. Hopefully he's able to sign a contract, and Devin Bush Jr. Then you're really looking pretty good. Mark Davison says Boswell, number 9, not missing a kick. Hey, I think Boswell's back, and he showed it last year. Very interesting. If you have not had a chance to check this out, we do interviews from time to time, as many as we can get, and they're usually Steeler affiliated. I did one the other day with Morton Anderson, Hall of Famer. And the reason I did that is because I could tie it into Gary Anderson. I could tie it into his thoughts on the Steelers. I could tie it into Chris Boswell. And he talked about a lot of things. And I was going to ask him this question, and he answered it for me. He said the long snapper and the long snapper and the holder are very important to a guy's game. And if you remember when he had a bad season, that might have been Cameron Canada's first year. There might have been a little bit of a disconnect, but there was also some injury involved there. So there's a lot of things. Wes Hickok says Juju needs to retire as a Steeler. He also believes he will retire as a Steeler. Thaddeus thinks not. Doesn't think he's going to. But there's so many things that will make this a memorable season. And it's just playing your game and being the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think that's going to be the most important thing. Now I want to transition to Father's Day. And like I mentioned, and before I do that, I always want to thank anybody that puts in a super chat. Dave Shipley, no salary increase. It's our last year to win a Super Bowl. Do you agree? Here's the thing about the salary cap. Everybody's going to have a problem with the salary cap not going up. I mean, some less than others, but here's the deal with that. The NFL is going to have to do something to not decrease the salary cap. You really can't do that because there's going to be a lot of free agents and a lot of guys out of football, and that's probably the last thing that they want to do with the union right now, even though they have a new deal. So you don't really want to mess with the salary cap that much. So I don't know if the salary cap is not going to increase. There's with COVID, with everything, you've got to make adjustments, and the salary cap will greatly hinder the league if it doesn't go up. How can they do it? They're going to have to find a way, just like Omar Khan always finds a way with the checkbook in Pittsburgh to find guys. But if you don't have the salary cap, I understand. So there's some things that they're going to have to do. So what I want to do here is, by the way, Dave, thank you for the $5. I appreciate that. If you want to go ahead and get to the top of the queue, you can throw in a little bit in the tip jar as well. So I want to transition over to Father's Day. And like I said, Father's Day is a very special day to me. In the past, it didn't mean as much until I became a father. And I want to tell you a story about one of the most meaningful Father's Day days in my life. It's 2003, and I was not a father at the time. In fact, I had just gotten divorced. Not only did I just get divorced, my ex was having a baby with somebody else, and the baby was born a couple months earlier. So it was one of those situations where I went home to hang out with my parents on Father's Day weekend to honor them, but I was really down, thinking that I'm never going to be a dad. It's one of the most important things that I've always wanted to be a dad. And one of the most important things in my life that I wanted to do. I also was hiding a secret at the time. I had the secret that I was hiding was that I had a very bad lump and a growth that I told one or two people about, and I feared that it would be cancer, and it ended up being cancer. But it was cancer that I was able to get taken care of, and 17 years later, I am cancer-free. So I'm very proud, after a couple surgeries, to be a cancer survivor. And along those lines, I do want to just digress real quick, and a shout out to Mrs. Big Brosco. And Mrs. Big Brosco had a very good diagnosis as far as being cancer-free this week. And Dave brought that up on the show, and I want to give a shout out to her too. Big part of our Steeler family. But so I was hiding this news because I didn't want to worry my parents about it. And I didn't tell them that day, but it was a horrible Father's Day for me because I just felt like at the age of 31 that it was over, not life, but it just like my chances. And where I had the cancer, it was a situation where I was probably never going to be able to have kids. That's what I was told. But here's the miracle that happened. I caught it early. And because I caught it early, I did not have to end up having radiation or chemo, which meant that I was able to still conceive. They told me that you'd have to work hard to conceive, and it might take a lot longer. And I was like, well, hey, I have no problem with that. That didn't happen. I actually was able to conceive quickly when I finally got a chance to. But the reason that Father's Day ends up being very memorable to me is because I was there with my dad, and we were working outside. I was helping him out, and he knew I was down because of the other thing. And he just, he didn't stay after me, but he just kept on making sure I was okay and talking to me. And just because my personal life was really bringing me down. And he was just a dad, guiding like he always has. Now, I want to give you another date in my life. December 5th, 1982. My birthday is December 3rd. I'm 11 years old. And my dad, for my birthday, says, we're going to the Steelers Chiefs game on Sunday. Happy birthday. Now, when you're a kid, that's the most glorious thing in the world, finding out you're going to a Steeler game, especially your first Steeler game, because those guys to me were bigger than life. You know, I'm watching Bradshaw, Lambert, Stallworth. I got to see them all in this game. You know, Bradshaw threw a bomb to Stallworth. It was glorious. I got to see Franco in this game. You know, the fact that I was going to a game that I've watched on TV for a long time at that point, because I've been watching since I was a kid. You grow up in Johnstown, PA in the 70s, you become a Steeler fan, and if you don't, you're like, they think you're weird. You know, so Dad took me to the game, and it was just a beautiful experience, just me and him. And we talk about this game all the time. So I want to flash forward to November 22nd, 1992. So almost 10 years later. I'm 21 years old. Actually, I'm 20. I'm almost 21. And I was working for a Fox news station at the time. I ran the audio on a little station in Johnstown, PA, Fox, WCCP Channel 8. That was the Fox station in Johnstown. It was a fairly new station, and I ran the audio on the news, and I became friends with the sports director, and he let me. No one was using the press passes for that game, so he said, "Here's a camera. Just go ahead and take the camera. Here's the press passes. You could have 2 press passes." So I'm taking my dad, and I'm at college, and I'm living at college, and I had all these buddies that wanted to go to the game with me. I'm like, I'm taking Dad. So I take Dad to the game, and like I said, 1992. So we go there with our press passes. We get to park. We get great parking, and then we go up to the game, and we're near the press box, and a beautiful buffet, a beautifully catered buffet. Took my dad too, so we're eating, we're getting ready for the game, and I have to go down to the field because I'm supposed to film and do the video packages for it, and we get to go to the press conference after the game. So, and that was Bill Cowher's first year, and I got to go to the Bill Cowher press conference, so it was amazing. This was the game that Dwight Stone almost ran me over on the sidelines, and I ran away like a little baby because I had my fraternity jacket on. I knew my buddies were watching the game, and I didn't want to just get crushed. I wasn't worried about getting hit as much as people seeing me get hit and being all over TV. So I'm like, Dad, you've got to stay up here. We can't go on the field together. And so you get to go in the press box. So Dad goes and sits down. And a couple of people are like, sir, what are you doing here? And he's like, I'm here to cover the game. And I think there was a guy from Beaver County Times or whatever that said, he's good. He belongs here, and gave my dad a pencil. And my dad starts taking notes. Then all of a sudden, they at the end of the quarter, they bring out all these stats. And I was like, hey, he's sitting back enjoying the game. It was great. At halftime, they brought him food. They at the time at Three Rivers, I don't know if they still do that. I've never been in the press box, but they brought him all this food. It was great. I had a boxed lunch that Three Rivers gave me down in the I think I was in the visitors dugout at Three Rivers at the time, and it was just like he got the star treatment and I was down there, and it was glorious because he still talks about that to this day as one of the greatest things. And for me, the reason it was so special to me is because 10 years earlier, my dad took me to my first game. I finally got to take my dad to a game. And we got to do this a lot. My buddy had season tickets. I was living in West Virginia. He was living in Johnstown. He'd come up, we'd meet, and I would take him to the games. So I had an opportunity to take him to 5 or 6, maybe more than that. I took him to a lot of games. And in fact, it ended up with I got to take him to more games than he took me, and that was really special to me. So the reason I bring this up is you make memories not because of what's really going on the field. I mean, stuff that goes on the field we'll never forget, but the stuff that goes on the field is the stuff that you relive with the people you're watching the games with. And I wouldn't be a Steeler fan if it wasn't my dad saying, "Hey, watch the game with me." You didn't have all the options you have now. My kids don't watch the game with me. They're not interested in it. They might be. They might be interested later. But it's just really special to go ahead and have that bond and enjoy it. Let's flash back to about a month before I took Dad to that game. I was a senior in college, and we would have at my fraternity house. It was an on-campus fraternity house, and we would all watch the games together. And the Steelers were really good that year. It was Cowher's first year. They were going to the playoffs. They were hot, and so they're like, "Hey, Bad." Well, they called me BD back then, and they actually called me Fox because my radio name was Brian Fox, actually. And so they're like, "Fox, you hanging out for the game here?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm leaving you guys." I'm like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going to my dad's." So Dad was 10 minutes away. So I grabbed a couple subs and we went. It's just me and Dad watching the game together. And I brought a sub home for Mom too. So I didn't leave Mom out, but Mom didn't watch all the games with us. So Dad and I just sat there watching the Steelers play the Oilers. The Oilers were a really good team that year, and they beat them. They swept them that season. And it was just I could have hung out with my buddies, but it was something more to watch the game with Dad. And having watched a game with Dad for the last 2 years, that's got to change. I really need to go to a Super Bowl with Dad. And I've never had a chance to go to a Super Bowl with Dad, and that's his fault. And the reason I'm going to say it's his fault, now I'm calling him out. So back in 1979, actually 1980, it was right before Super Bowl 14. The Steelers it was a Saturday night before the AFC Championship game against the Oilers. And my uncle, may rest in peace, my mom's brother, he had season tickets to the game, and he had maybe 8 to 10 tickets to the Super Bowl in Pasadena. And he was kind of saying to my dad, he was like, "Hey, you want to go to the game? I've got some extra tickets," knowing that in his head that my mom wasn't going to let him go to the Super Bowl. And so my dad says, "Hold on." We were at my Aunt Teresa and Uncle Ralph's house, and he goes in to see my mom, mentions it, and comes back and says, "Yeah, we'll take 2 of those tickets." And he was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, we'll take 2 of those tickets." Like, "No way my sister's going to let you go." And it's like, "Yeah, we'll go." So my parents went to the game, and I was mad. I'm 8 years old. I'm like, "How come I'm not going to the Super Bowl? I want to go to the Super Bowl." They're like, "No, you're not going." So I actually, and don't take my Steeler card, but there was a part of me that wanted them to lose that game the next day. You're 8, just because I didn't want my parents to leave me and go to the Super Bowl because I was afraid of them getting on the plane, all this stuff. But they won the game, and I got over it, and it was awesome. And I still have the souvenirs that my mom and dad brought me back. But why am I telling you that story? So 2 years ago, I had another opportunity of a lifetime, and I invited Dad, and it was to go to Chantilly, Virginia for an autograph signing with Terry Bradshaw. So I took Terry Bradshaw, I took Dad down, and he was thrilled to go. And we go there, and there was a long line, and I wasn't sure. I didn't ask for a picture or anything. My dad took pictures of Terry while he was signing. And so what happened, we go up there. I thank him for all the memories. Terry Bradshaw was very cordial, very nice. And then my dad leans in. My dad says, "Hey, I was at Super Bowl 14. I'll never forget that." And Terry Bradshaw stops, looks at my dad, and just goes like, puts his hand on his chin, and goes, that was a tough one. We won, but that was a really tough game. And so here I chime in. I'm like, yeah, Terry Bradshaw, yeah, he didn't take me. I'm still mad at him. And he's like, why didn't he take you? And I said, well, because I was 8 and he took my mom and said instead. And Terry looks at me and he goes, well, hell, son, I wouldn't have taken you either. And shakes my dad's hand. And I said, yeah, I'm at him, and which I'm not, Dad and I, we're always going to joke about that. Terry Bradshaw leans into me and says, son, let me tell you something. Just be glad you have him. And, I'll never forget those words. And I'm so glad I have them. I'm so glad I have those memories with Dad. It's the most important thing. I'm going to see Dad today. He's probably watching this podcast right now. My nephew Noah, my godson Noah, who I love dearly, he's setting it up for Dad so he could watch it. So I hope he gets a chance to watch it. And if I'm tearing up, I apologize. But the memories we have with our families watching these games are the most important things. I'm a Steeler fan because of my dad. My dad he had a father. He had a sperm donor, but he left when he was 4. He made promises that he never kept. I'm going to come back and, take you to the movies, and left my grandmother and 4 kids just in the lurch. I mean, he had a guy that gave him life, but he didn't give him a life. And my dad had a choice when he had kids, and his choice was to not do that, not put kids through the pain, that he was put through. And he's been an amazing father to me for almost 58 years. I'm 48, and so it means a lot. I also talked about the fact that I'm a dad, and it took a long time for me to be a dad. I mentioned Noah. I'm a godfather to Noah. I have 3 kids. My stepson Stefan, he's a married, fantastic career. I'm so proud of him. Connor, who's almost 13. Jillian, who's just turned 11. And they mean the world to me. And you probably hear them on podcast yelling in the background and being kids. And one time I mentioned that they were going to be grounded for ruining my show. And I got a message from a great contributor of this show who is definitely in an older generation of me, probably around the same age as my dad, Dennis Sheridan. Dennis, I love you. You're a great contributor to the show. And he wrote me a private note that said, Bad, let the kids be kids. Don't get them in trouble. They add color to the show. It was something like that. And that was really special. So I'm looking out here, everybody in the live chat. It's special to be a sports fan because a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us, it was handed down from generations. And that's what makes it so sweet. Because I know I could always talk Steelers with my dad. I could talk a lot of stuff with my dad, but we always go back to Steelers. And it's something that we're always going to have, and we're always going to have that bond. So real quick, Steel 58, thank you so much. $10, giving us a super sticker there in the live chat. If you have something you want to say, go ahead and say it. Lots of support in the live chat, and I'm sorry I'm breaking down. I was never an emotional guy until I got married and had kids, and now I'm an emotional guy because life's important to you. Now, not everybody's blessed with the story that I was able to tell here. And I understand that. But if you're not a dad, you can be a dad. You don't have to be blood to be a dad to somebody. I feel like I'm a dad to 40 scouts. That's something very special to me. And there's one scout, his initials are BAD. He was having a tough time at camp last year. I'm like, hey, we're the bad patrol together. And so that's something he's never forgotten. His mom and dad, they're great people, and they thank me for that. That I was able to help him out with that. But it's just something that you can mean something in somebody's life. Even if you're not a dad, you can be a dad. So what I want to do in the next 5 minutes, anybody has memories of how they became a Steeler fan, and what their Steeler relationship is with their father, whether you're male or female, you have that relationship. The show This Is Us, very Steeler centric, set in Pittsburgh. The kids were conceived at Froggy's during this halftime of the Super Bowl. The first scene, he's wearing nothing but a terrible towel. Very beautiful scene. It's like episode 4. A guy wants to go out on a date with a daughter. I think her name's Kate in the show. And she's like, I'm watching the game with my dad. And the dad had passed away, and what he didn't realize is she was watching the game with the urn. And because she always watched the game with her dad, and she still, watched the game with him. And she was annoyed because he wanted to talk about other things and not the Steelers. And that's just not what she did. So, we have that bond with people. So I want to bring up Wes. Wes says, my dad and I had an estranged relationship and hadn't spoken for 2 years when he died in 2018. That's I'm sorry that you have that memory. If you have an opportunity, and I'm sure Wes would say, if you have an opportunity to, even if you're having a situation where you haven't spoken for a long time, my goal is I hope somebody is able to pick up the phone and not have that situation where you're not speaking. I'm reading some of these on the fly. My dad is Aussie, says Mark Davison. For the last 16 years, I teach my dad the NFL game every year, and he doesn't understand, but my dad supports the black and gold regardless. Awesome. Hats off to you. Doc Apollo just says, who broke out the onions? Love you, brother. Thank you. Love you too. Wes mentions this. Damn right. I tell my uncle all the time, happy Father's Day, because he helped raise me. You have those people in your life that can be your, like I said, they don't have to be blood. Dave Shipley. I was 5 at the Immaculate Reception with my dad at Three Rivers. We were getting a head start to leave when we heard the roar and we missed the play, but you were still there. That's the thing. You were still there and you were with your dad at that game. Wes says again, my point simply is, let me pull this up. Don't let time go by when you have it, because one day you won't. And that's, hey, my goal is, sometimes that you make amends, and you reach out. And if somebody gets on the phone today or gets in the car and drives, weren't planning to see your dad, then I feel that I did good today. Lifelong fan 07 says, I remember my dad and seeing the Super Bowl against the Cowboys in 1979. So that's the thing. The games that I talked about, the Chiefs in 82, wasn't a big game. That Oilers game, the Colts game that I took my dad to, the Press Box game I talked about, they aren't memorable games when you talk about Super Bowls, but they're memories to me that I'm never gonna let go. Dave Shipley says, "Don't blink; it goes quickly." And Wes, bad the fact you're not afraid to put your real self out there. That's why we love you. We joke about the 2 a.m. stories. Those 2 a.m. stories. I'm not that guy anymore, but I love being Mr. 2 a.m. But don't be afraid. Thank you for saying that. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because we've all got hearts underneath the skin, no matter who we are, what we look like. And we get up and worry about the same things. Man, I got to go to work. We pray that our family and our friends are safe. We're all in it for the same things. Snowman says, my dad has been gone for 11 years. I'm so sorry to hear that. And I know Father's Day can be tough for those that when dad's not around. And that's a thing too. But the memories are the most important thing. And there's going to be a time when my dad's not here, or I might first, but it's what we make now. And that's the best thing. Doc Apollo says, my son isn't my blood, but I'll never love him any less. That's true. You don't have to be blood. You just have to be a family. And we are a family here at behindthesteelcurtain.com. And the 36 watching in the live chat right now, man, you're talking to me at 9:30 on Father's Day in the morning. You're hanging out with me. That feels like respect. And man, you make me feel good for doing this. So when Lance told me earlier in the week and yesterday, buddy, take the day off. Don't have to have a show. And I was like, you know what? I want you to take the day off, but I want to do this because I want to talk about dad, and I just want to spend time with my other family. I'm going to spend plenty of time with my family, but being on with my BTSC family is very important. Lifelong fan 07. Sorry, Snowman. My dad has also been gone for almost 2 years now. Yeah, and I wasn't trying to bring everybody down, but we've got blessings in our life, man. We've got blessings, and there might be some petty differences. We might have some petty differences. We might have some differences that we can't get through, but you know what? Remember what's important to you and make it count. If you haven't seen somebody for a while and you have this disagreement, you know what? Maybe if it means enough to you, amends. But I'm not here to preach. I'm just showing my love. And I just want to say to everybody, happy Father's Day. No matter who you are, you don't have to be a dad to celebrate this day. Just celebrate this day. And it's a good one. In a weird 2020, make this a great day. Dave Shipley says, we are family with a heart. That's it. We are family, and I love you all. So happy Father's Day to all of you. Happy Father's Day to everybody at BTSC. Thanks for spending the last hour with a guy crying, but they're tears of joy. And may you all have tears of joy in your life. I'll talk to you tomorrow on the preview. It's not going to be, not the preview. What am I saying? On the Q&A with Tony Defio. I'll talk to you then. Until then, thank you so much for spending the time with me. Happy Father's Day to all of you. I love you all. And we continue to be family together. BTSC forever.